Hello viewers, in this session we will look at the interesting elements of folk theatre which are used brilliantly by Girish Karnad. Hayavadana focuses on the problem of identity and search for completeness, and the playwright Girish Karnad has enriched it by following the folk drama tradition. It is a rich view of plots and subplots largely drawn from one of the traditional folk theatres of Kannada called Yakshagana. The literal meaning of this term is the song of the demigods, and it is called Yakshagana Bayalata. Bayalata in Kannada means a play performed in open air. Dr. Karnad pioneered the act of introducing Yakshagana as an operatic dance drama. Its themes are taken from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata and the Puranas. The beauty of the Yakshagana tradition to be found in Hayavadana is in the character of Bhagavata. He is versatile enough to participate in both the main and the subplot of the play, comments on the characters, sings songs and sometimes narrates the story, all rolled into one. All these characteristics of Bhagavata are taken from the Bhagavata of the Yakshagana tradition. Hayavadana, like the Yakshagana plays, also opens with the song of invocation to God Ganesha. Interestingly, besides following the tradition of folk theatre, this invocation to Lord Ganesha has another interesting connotation. We know that Ganesha is the son of goddess Parvati and with the transposed head of an elephant. Therefore, by the invocation to Lord Ganesha in Hayavadana, Karnad presents the Yakshagana tradition by making it thematically parallel, as the play also talks about the transposition of heads. Hayavadana is a symbolic drama exploiting several conventions of Yakshagana in a subtle way. The different elements are the half curtain, which is carried outstage to introduce new characters, and the Bhagavata or narrator who introduces the story and comments on the action throughout the play. So, we realize that Bhagavata plays a vital role in presenting this play to its readers. The structure of the play as a whole, however, is not derived from any particular regional tradition, and its philosophical exploration of the problems of wholeness and identity has a decidedly modern orientation. Girish Karnad's experimental approach is laudable here. He is of the opinion that the conventional channels of literature need not be treated as precious artifacts. He has subtly sent a message that traditional forms can be adapted to treat modern themes that appeal to the urban audience. The application of these traditional forms to modern theatre were not casual or incidental. It was analyzed thoroughly and was consciously used to enrich the modern theatre. Karnad is also of the opinion that the conventional channels of literature need not be treated as precious artifacts. Karnad combines the Western techniques with Indian folk psyche, socio-cultural and political reality. The entire play is cast in the form of a traditional Indian Sanskrit drama. He strikes a significant note by exploring the dramatic potential of the ancient Indian myths, legends and folk traditions. Karnad used mythical aspects in Hayavadana with a modern backdrop to expose the menace of modern life. The playwright has shown the ugly side of the modern life and has also proved that its impact on human psyche is disastrous. A myth is a tale or a narrative with a symbolic meaning. Human, non-humans and superhuman characters appear in myths. Hence, this genre appears very interesting to its readers or those who are interested in this particular genre. Likewise, as these characters are uplifting and inspiring, they raise awe and fear in us. The most remarkable characteristic feature of myths is its normative nature. It sets down rules which specifically apply to the moral sphere. Myths are preserved in the 4 Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Puranas, and their aesthetic and social appeal has survived through centuries and remain very impressive even in modern times. That is the greatness of any literary piece. He explores the resources of myth, folklore, legend and history to build his dramatic universe. Karnad made use of myth and history not only to explore past but also to contemplate the possibilities which the future seems to hold. According to Karnad, the energy of folk theatre comes from the fact that although it seems to uphold traditional values, it also has the means of questioning those values, of making them literally stand on their heads. Hayavadana also points to the duality of human, animal, the struggle of the human being to discipline his animalism, with the latter ironically becoming victorious in the end. In other words, the reenactment of ancient myths in Hayavadana aims at the transformation of the fragmented and the agonized self into a composite whole. It has to be underlined that the transposition of heads failed to solve Padmini's problem of identity, which is at the bottom a universal human problem of answering a question, who am I? Another question, what am I? Padmini's desires are not stated clearly even after the transposition of heads. The tension between moral right and wrong encompasses her whole being. The myth, in the words of the Bhagavata, offers the solution to Padmini's predicament. As the heavenly Kalpavriksha is supreme among trees, so is the head among human limbs. Therefore, the man with Devadatta's head is indeed Devadatta and he is the rightful husband of Padmini's. Thus, the tale of Vetala Panchavimshati acts as a metaphor for Karnad's narration of the psychological predicament of the modern man bound by social and moral norms and inhibitions. In this module, we will try to know more about magic realism. In literature, the term magic realism designates a mode of presenting reality in which the realistic and the fantastic elements blend together. In magic realist fiction, magical things happen in the humdrum of mundane world. The element of logic does not make any sense in the world of magic realism. In countries like India, people believe in myths and ghosts, and this belief is a part of their cultural tradition. The element of supernatural plays a significant role in the Indian society. The impact of this element on human psyche is immense. But only magical things do not constitute the Indian culture. There is a realism also, hence the term magic realism. The theme of self and its completeness has intrigued many and is a topic of eternal debate across the world. People have tried to decode this through many approaches. They are yet to find the answer. The theme of the search for completeness correlates the main plot with the subplot in the play. In the subplot, we encounter the character of Hayavadana, who has the head of a horse and the body of a man who can sing in the human voice. Unlike the main plot, where Padmini's search for completeness destroys her at the end, Hayavadana becomes happy when he turns into a complete horse. Goddess Kali helps him to become a complete horse, and he gets rid of human voice by singing the Indian national anthem. In a way, it is a comment on the fact that completeness and unity of the self is possible only for non-human beings. Uncanny and esoteric elements are blended with both the main plot and the subplot of Hayavadana in such a way that they became significant components of the play. Karnad presents Goddess Kali as a character of the play, whose intrusion changes the destinies of Padmini, Kapila and Devadatta and Hayavadana as well. This is the power of magic realism. We are never allowed to put our disbelief on the incidents like the transposition of the heads of Kapila and Devadatta by Padmini and their coming back to life, the transformation of Hayavadana into a complete horse from a man with a horse head, and the existence of dolls that can speak. Another important concept of this play is existentialism. The concept of existentialism is closely associated with eternal quest for understanding self and one's own identity in the existing world despite its limitations and failures. In the play, identity and impersonation have been employed in a unique way, leading to conflicts between the mind and the body. When Kapila and Devadatta's heads get transposed, the identity crisis further deepens and the influence of the bodies on the minds is tremendous. This brings to the fore a conflict that we face in our lives. If the mind is dependent on the body or vice versa. The conflict between the head and the body is well expressed in Devadatta's words. I had always thought one had to use one's brain while wrestling or fencing or swimming, but this body does not wait for thoughts, it acts. But the irony has been brought out very well by Karnad. As we in today's times often choose body over mind, Padmini too does the same. This reflects the changing preferences in our lives. What determines one's identity? A thought-provoking question draws our attention and compels us to ponder over certain questions or few more questions. Is it physical beauty and brains, or strength and physical dexterity and prowess? Well, this question is yet to be answered. Devadatta and Kapila are those two attributes personified respectively. The Bhagavata, the omniscient narrator, himself declares that the head defines the identity of a man. Ironically, we find that the Bhagavata himself reverses the same when he addresses Hayavadana in the first part of the play as poor man. Even though Hayavadana possesses the head of a horse, if the voice of Bhagavata declares that head is supreme, the tale of Hayavadana seems to echo that the body is superlative. The prince controlling the horse symbolizes the head, and the horse may signify the body. Contrary to these two, the main plot vacillates between the priority over the head and the body. The concept of head-body conflict has been brilliantly used by Karnad. He tries to present a perspective through the conflict between the self and the other by means of the rejoined bodies of Kapila and Devadatta. If the old head symbolizes the self, the new body symbolizes the other. The self is opposed to the other, but it has also to assimilate the other by bringing about a transformation in the other so that it becomes one with the self. We need to be little careful when we understand these two elements. What are they? The element of self, the element of the other. As a result, over a period of time, the body of Kapila attached to the head of Devadatta transforms into the likeness of Devadatta's old body and vice versa. But despite this transformation, Padmini remains discontented. Her effort to find perfection in her life partner fails. She becomes the victim of this conflict between head and the body, intellect and emotion. Her dissatisfaction and anguish suggest that it is impossible to resolve the dualities perfectly, that one has to live with these dualities, and that the ideal state of harmony is practically unattainable. Hayavadana personifies the duality at heart of modern Indian subjectivity. The novel theme of horseman anticipates the entire range of dualities which the play subsequently explores. It also exemplifies the constituent duality of the human being, which is the duality between the animal and the human. It can be said that the head and body conflict has been used by Karnad to explore the central dilemma faced by a contemporary Indian between various contradictory constituents of subjectivity. The vast range of dualities include the spiritual and the materialist, the mental and the bodily, the rural and the urban, the pre-colonial and the colonialized, the traditional and the modern. Thus, Hayavadana lays bare various layers of duality present in the center of contemporary Indian subjectivity. The pursuit for identity forms a significant part of Karnad's thematic concerns. Hayavadana is concerned entirely with the question of human identity in a world of tangled relationships. Most of the characters in the play are haunted with the problem of identity. The astonishing desire of Padmini and Princess of Karnataka, along with the mixed identity of Kapila, Hayavadana and Devadatta, baffle the audience. Padmini's act of transposition of the heads create the identity crisis of Devadatta, Kapila and of her own. Her going back to Kapila and the fight between Devadatta and Kapila and her final sacrifice, all this creates an acute sense of identity crisis in her. It is Hayavadana who desperately struggles to know his society. In the post-colonial society, the identity crisis has affected the human psyche and has become a major issue. Earlier, if Ganesha was the husband of Siddhi and Riddhi, Padmini is the beloved of intelligence and strength. Devadatta represents intelligence and Kapila represents strength. Nevertheless, in her case, they both fail to constitute a harmonious whole. She is infatuated by both intellect and strength. She is governed by the strong desire of possessing both, and this leads to a split in her identity. The mental imbalance is clearly explicit in the provocative and offensive imagery that portrays her as a woman bathing in blood of the two men. This phenomenon is purely psychological. Padmini is legally wedded to Devadatta out of her desire for fair looks and intellect, and attracted to Kapila for his physical elegance and manual prowess. At another level, Kapila and Devadatta suffer from the state of identity crisis when their heads get transposed. The Bhagavata, in his invincible authority, allows the head to gain precedence. Devadatta also refers to the Shastras and says that head is the sign of a man. Nevertheless, one cannot fail to perceive the influence of the bodies on the two. As for the identity of the child, it remains cloaked in mystery. It probably corresponds to a representative of the next generation in that it remains indifferent to the system or reacts violently to the same. The child biologically belongs to Devadatta's head and Devadatta's body. However, it exhibits qualities of Kapila in its violence and unintelligible activities. The mole of Kapila remains on his shoulder as his identity. The body reigns supreme here. How beautifully Karnad has presented the conflict between the head and the body through these wonderful characters. Padmini lustily craves for the body of Kapila and is not hesitant to admit it to herself. However, she fails to find the perfection she was looking for in her man. The combination of brains and brawn. She is torn between the intellect and the muscle power. There could be an implication that her hypersexuality led to her loss. While the concept of beauty with brains is accepted worldwide in relation to women, Padmini seems to be too ambitious when she wishes for a handsome body coupled with intellect. Padmini is made to commit sati after the deaths of Devadatta and Kapila, which is a throwback to the traditional concept of the wife being a non-entity on her own. Spirited and charming, modern in many ways, Padmini chooses nonetheless to follow the Indian tradition. The dramatist has demystified the mother in Indian English drama. The established view that the mother is the symbol of selflessness and love cannot be applied to the two mothers in Hayavadana, Hayavadana's mother and Padmini. Hayavadana's mother in the framed tale runs away, abandoning her son when her husband, a celestial being, deserts her and returns to his heavenly abode. Padmini's love for her son is never demonstrated in the play. Padmini, with the transposition of heads, tried to get a complete man. Did she get it? No. It means that man is an imperfect being and the world he lives in is also imperfect. Hence, it is absolutely futile to attain perfection in this imperfect world. But at the same time, it is also true that no one can be a perfect being. For a human being, it is better to live with a constant tension rather than try to resolve it through some impossible desire for perfection. If we try to conclude this play, this is what we understand. Karnad says that the use of myths and folk techniques allow us to understand and decode the complexities of human psyche. Although the myths have traditional and religious approvals, they pave the way for the questioning of human values. The play reveals vagueness of human personality, which is apparently shaped or fractured by the human environment. Human beings, with their limitations of being incomplete and imperfect, human beings search and yearn for attaining the unattainable ideal of completeness and perfection. In order to fulfill their yearnings, they try to attain completeness with the help of supernatural elements which further deepen the identity crisis. Such seekers either experience the tragical end or a comical end, but never a perfect end. Padmini, for instance, ruins herself and all her relationships. Even the child that she leaves under the Bhagavata's care is not normal because of her own compulsions. Hayavadana, for instance, does not bring destruction to himself as Padmini does, but suffers the drastic consequences of his search for completeness by going down the ladder of existence, that is, from man to horse. If critically analyzed, Karnad's presentation of the supernatural beings, especially that of goddess Kali in Hayavadana, points to the playwright's suggestions that human beings should accept their psychological limitations imposed by nature. He cannot violate and try to attain perfection. The best solution for the problem of identity crisis then, according to Karnad, is reconciliation with one's own self and the environment one lives in. Thus, the myth requires new dimensions in the creative hands of Karnad as the play unfolds rich strands of meaning. In the words of M.K. Naik, Hayavadana represents the typical existential anguish, but does not stop at the existential despair. Going beyond it, the play suggests a strategy for the achievement of integration in a world inevitably cursed with absurdity and irrationality. So, dear viewers, to conclude, one strong message from this great playwright is, let us live with our limitations and be happy and peaceful. Thank you.